Classes in Python. So if you see here, what we can see is there is a one machine and it is giving all the card ropes with the, it is cutting all the card ropes with the same size, same length, right? So this is something like we are giving some blueprint to the machine that we want this kind of length width of this card rope, and it is printing all the card rope with the same functionalities. So the similar concept we use when we are creating classes in the Python. Let's understand. For example, we need to create a class with the employee. So how we define the employees? Employee will employee will be having name, he will be having some department, he will be having salary, and he will be having address. So we can call all these details as some of the variables, and manipulating those variables we will be having some functions. So here we have some get person details, we have some update address, calculate overtime, and calculate salary. If you see here, we can consider employee as a class with the name, department, salary, address, these attributes, and get person details, update address, calculate overtime, and calculate salary is called as an function. So when these variables and functions are combined together, we will be having this class, and with using this class we will be able to create multiple employees. So if you see here, I'm creating instance e1, e2, e3, e4. This all will be my employees, and this all will be following the same structure what we have created in the class employee. Therefore this e1, e2, e3, e4, those are called as an objects, because these all objects are referring to the blueprint which we have seen just now as an employee. So here these all instances will be using the same blueprint. Therefore, we will be calling employee as my class, and this E1, E2, E3, E4, these are the objects of that class. So you can create multiple objects of any class. Let's understand the same concept using code. Okay, so here I'll be creating one class. I'll define the class as class employee. Inside this class, I'll be creating one init method. So this init method will act as a constructor. So whenever you will create the object of this employee class, it will be going to execute this init method. It will be get executed only once for every object. Yeah, here I am having a class with name employee, and I have two methods. One is the init method. So ideally init method is like a constructor. So whenever you will create an object of an employee class, it will be get executed. Similarly, for any class, init method will get executed whenever object gets created. By this will be a by default. So this method will get called whenever you create object. Inside that I am using one variable as a name, and I will pass this value to self.name. Then I have another function to print that name. Now let's create object of this class. I'm creating e1 as employee, okay, with the parenthesis. So this will create an employee class instance with these details, and whenever we have this object get created, it actually executes this method side. So here I am going to pass name, okay, and then this name will be get passed to this particular method and this variable. Now if I do print, so if I call e1 dot print name, okay, so this is going to call this e1 dot print name function, and it will print this name. Let me run this code. Here we can see that the code is getting executed, and we can see the name printed as Monica. Now let's understand. few other things. So init is one of the thing to understand related to employee. The second is for any function in the class, self will be the variable, or self will be the first argument. So self is nothing but whatever instance you are creating, right? So it is going to point that instance. Okay, so for any function you create, by default self will be added there. For example, let me create one more function, sorry, one more function, def print. Okay, print is print details. Okay, I'm creating this function, but if I don't add self here and try to run, this is going to fail. Okay, let me run, will understand. Okay, now let's understand, if I'm not passing here self parameter, what will happen. So initially when I'm not passing self parameter itself, I can see here error that method must have a first parameter, usually called self. Now suppose I don't add even after this error and I run this code, it will run if we don't call this method. But if we are calling this method, the program will be failed with the error that employee print details takes zero positional arguments, because self is something we need to pass here.